Hey ghouls, demons, and fellow weird ones. So today I wanted to talk about a few different subjects. I'm going to see how many videos I can get through today. But I wanted to talk about my weird books and my weird tales and what the literature writing side of weird curations is. So I guess we'll go back to the beginning and kind of explain more lore, right? So I've been writing since I was 9. I started writing in 4th grade. I had a school project from Miss Richardson. I don't remember what the project was on. I just know that that's where I started writing. I was really inspired. I loved the project. I loved having to create a short story, and I started locking myself up in the computer room and writing on a Word doc, anything that came to mind. I would write stories for my family and family friends. It wasn't any of my age group friends. It was always for adults. I wrote one for my babysitter. I did write one for my younger cousin Lindsay. She was a main character in that book. Cowess, Lindsay, and Ariel the mer cow. She really loved the Little Mermaid. She really loved the Little Mermaid, and it was I don't even really know, a Western, I genuinely don't know where it came from. I kind of wish I had a copy of that story. A lot of these stories are lost, not even archived, just I don't know what happened to them because the computer's long gone, the hard drive is long gone. This was at my grandparents' house. This was one of the first home computers, and it was in the computer room, which then turned into my mom's room it was a whole thing. So I would lock myself in there and I would write these stories for people, and they always involved their dreams, something that they wanted to be when they grew up or got older, or something that they wish that they would have done. I wrote one for my grandpa, a couple for my grandpa, and it was just stuff that he always said he would have liked to have done. So I wrote the story of what if you did go that route, or just all kinds of things. So and I would give them as gifts to people, and I loved it. Like I said, I would type it up on a Word document, I'd print it out on just regular paper. Sometimes I would fold it, sometimes I would punch holes in it and bind it with ribbon. I did a few different things to gift it to people. So the one I wrote for my babysitter Jennifer for her wedding, it was a wedding present. I designed a purse. Not really. I took a purse and I changed, I glued fabric inside it. I altered the purse. I wouldn't say I didn't build the purse from scratch, but I was really into designing at the time too. Still am. That is still something down the future as far as clothing designs go. I always loved being artistic and creative. So I put the story wrapped up in a message in a bottle in this cute little purse that I reconstructed for her. And it was a typical prince and princess happily ever after fairy tale, and that kind of ties into the essence of what my weird tales are. Is they have a significant fairy tale, whimsical, fantasy element to it, and I think that's because it is so deeply spiritually related, and that's what a lot of fairy tales were. Fairy tales and fables traditionally had a lesson and a wisdom, and there was something more to it than just happily ever after. In fact, traditional fairy tales often didn't have the happiest ever after. It was bittersweet. There was happy and there was a harsh lesson for, I guess, the adversaries. It kind of depends on what fairy tale and how you want to look at it. But the whole point is for you to take something with you on your journey and evolve your soul, gain some insight, some wisdom. Especially for kids, it's setting the foundation for them to grow up in a wise manner and have these lessons and not repeat the mistakes of the elders before them. That's the oral tradition. So it goes into all the storytelling. I guess I've always been a storyteller my whole life. I've always yapped a lot. And then I started writing at 9, and I was obsessed with it. I quit writing people's stories in 6th or 7th grade. I got really depressed. Life hit me pretty fucking hard in like 5th grade. Life had hit me hard before that, but something about like halfway through 5th grade, there was this whole transition thing, and then 6th grade, I really started to lose my spark in a lot of ways, and then in 7th grade is all about being cool, right? And writing wasn't necessarily cool. So that's kind of all of that, but that's like how I started, and I wanted to bring it back when I started doing this as like a business thing. So I started with the idea that I was gonna write stories for my nieces, because I was writing on my blog. Like I don't really know how to like interweave the story, because it was just so much, like there's so much that happened. It was always there, and there's so many side quests or redirections and chaos ultimately. I don't even really know. Like it just you always end up back where you're supposed to be, and it's crazy how you get back to where you were. So that's how I started writing. Then I quit as far as like the stories were, and I got really focused on poetry starting like 8th and 9th grade. That was significant for me. I discovered Edgar Allan Poe. Like I realized I had read him and like earlier, but I didn't know who he was. But like 8th grade and 9th grade, there was segments on like poetry, and reading Edgar Allan Poe was like a big deal. So that sparked something within me. I felt understood. I felt seen. So much relation to Edgar Allan Poe. And then it's fun in hindsight, he's a Capricorn with a Pisces moon and a Pisces Venus. I'm pretty sure he's a Capricorn Mercury, if I remember correctly. And it's significant to me because of my personal birth chart placements. And then my best friend, who is also a huge we were Edgar Allan Poe girlies together. We both have Edgar Allan Poe tattoos, and that's a big part of our friendship. She's a Pisces moon, and I can see the astrological essence in why we were drawn to an artist of that caliber. So I think that just kind of shows some fun insights into astrology, and that's all in reflection. I found all of that out a few years ago, but still years after I fell in love with him as an artist, and he inspired a lot of my work. So I only read a few pieces of his, and it inspired me so much that I just didn't want to read anymore. I wanted to start creating, and that kind of has been my habit from that moment. Like 8th, 9th grade, I used to read a lot, and then I think the Twilight series was one of the last series and books that fictional books that I sat down and read, because then from there I was reading more poetry. I was reading a lot of nonfiction and other things. I wanted to learn, and I thought that you could only learn through nonfiction. A lie, total lie. But that was kind of the vibe. I didn't want to be ditzy anymore. I wanted to not be so dreamy and in my bubble and all of those other criticisms that I had that don't really matter. But because I wanted to be respected. I wanted to be respected as an intellectual, and it just seemed like no one really took the fantasy, fictitious side of what I was saying seriously. And I think it's because they didn't understand the weight of my metaphors. I don't really know. I have gone through that introspection so many times in my life, and wondering why people didn't understand me or didn't get what I was doing. Is it something that I'm doing? Do I need to better my skill? Are they committed to misunderstanding me? Is this just not their thing? All the questions. And I did a competition 8th grade. I did a competition in 8th grade where I spoke one of my poems out loud. I performed my poem. I wrote the poem. It was a long poem, and it was on abortion, which is kind of fun. I grew up in a pro-life Christian conservative town, and I was really wondering about abortion and what it was. And it's again, deeply philosophical from a young age. It was where does life begin? And so the poem for me was my way of processing and trying to understand, okay, well, if this is true, in my pro-life Christian conservative upbringing, if life is at conception, then the baby has a consciousness, the soul has a consciousness, and therefore I wrote a first person poem and narrative of the baby, it was really controversial and kind of fucked up when I think about it. Like really guilty. So it was like, I wonder what my name would have been. Mommy, why don't you want me? And these are like real questions. Like I wasn't doing it to make anyone who is questioning abortion, who has had an abortion, who is pro-abortion, like none of those things, pro-choice, all of it. I wasn't trying to make people feel bad. It was like just, again, a processing of all of the things that I've been taught and thinking about. And because I was always really spiritual and like in the soul. I was really questioning. At that time, I was really, oh my gosh, super questioning my Christian beliefs. I started that in 5th grade. I really started that in 5th grade for a variety of reasons. That's a whole other story time. But anyway, so I performed that piece. It was an original piece. It was terrifying, and I performed it in Albuquerque at this English Expo like competition thing. I got 2nd place, and I should be proud. My first time ever I got 2nd place. It was really cool. I was so nervous, but it discouraged me so bad that I self-sabotaged. Essentially what I did is like, so then the next year for English Expo, I signed up for it, paid for all the things, all of it, and then I just didn't show up to the bus. They called me, they're like, hey, are you on your way? Like, where are you? We gotta go. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm really sick, and just a half-assed excuse. And then I just couldn't be honest about, I guess, the fear and the dread and like the lack of support I felt. Like, my mom always went to all my brother's soccer competitions, and she always did this for my brothers, and to be fair to her, she was going to nursing school. Like there's a lot going on. I always try to be fair to my mom because I understand where our life was at, and I don't like having that pitted against my sibling competition attitude. Even though, to honor my feelings, it hurt my feelings. I was like, why would you do all of this for them? Why can't you show up to this expo for me? So my mom didn't, no one showed up for me. I went to it by myself. I'm doing all of this completely by myself, and then I get 2nd place. And it's like, okay, well, they give you a score sheet and they write criticisms. So my critique, the only fair critique that I had was that I was nervous. And I was, because here's the thing, they don't know this, but I missed like 2 stanzas of my poem because I was just so nervous speaking in front of people. I was 13. So of course you're gonna be nervous. So that was a fair critique. I don't think it was enough for me to get 2nd place because considering what I remember about the person, the guy who got 1st place, he retold a story that was already written. It wasn't his own story. He retold a story. I can't remember which one it was. But it was like a classical story that he retold. And he did a good job. I'm not going to say he didn't do a good job. And maybe he was like more animated. Like, I'm not saying he didn't deserve 1st place. I don't think I was fairly judged at the time. And this is because the next criticism I got. So being nervous, I'm like, okay, I can accept that because true, probably very obvious. The only other criticism I got was that it was controversial. It was too controversial. It was a controversial subject. Now Albuquerque and all of the rest of New Mexico, besides like my Four Corners area, is incredibly liberal and pro-choice. So I firmly believe that people didn't like the essence of what I was saying. I don't think they liked the first person fetus perspective. I also don't think they understood like why I was doing it. They're like, well, we can't give this 1st place, we can't give this too much attention because it's kind of in favor of the pro-life movement. And it's not that I wanted it to be. I think like on a surface level, I kind of thought maybe that's what I was doing because it really pleased all of the conservatives and pro-lifers that read it. They thought it was beautiful, and I was like, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do. It was just questioning what is life and all of these other deeper thoughts, which I'm not saying that people miss because those debates on like where does life begin, I understand the philosophical, ethical dilemma within people, not just on a Christian plane or a liberal plane. I think it's a hard decision for everyone in general, But I didn't get to talk about it or anything. It was just like, hey, this is my piece, and I'm really proud of it. Because it was an assignment. It was an assignment. We had to like make a video, and then we had to do a voiceover on the video and present it in front of class. And I want to say that it had Mr. Loopold, I'm pretty sure, wanted us to do a controversial subject, because other people, they chose suicide. Like, there was all kinds of other controversial, taboo, deeply emotional topics. And I kind of think that was like the theme. And I wanted to do something. I was like, well, everyone's doing suicide, everyone's doing depression, everyone's doing this, everyone's doing that. Let me pick something that no one's gonna touch for all of these reasons. And then I was really proud of it. So then I went to the expo and getting second place, and those being my only 2 criticisms, it was really hard for me to understand why like I didn't get first in that regard. If it was a better performance, it's like, well, this was a storytelling category and he told a better story. Okay, I can accept that. I just feel like I don't know. And this could just be me, I don't know, but I just feel like the fact that I wrote my own story, I memorized my own story, everything about what it was that I was doing, I just feel like deserved more than it received. So it was just like a final blow with a lot that I was dealing with. And then I didn't have anyone who, I guess, understood the disappointment in not being first with all that I put into it. And especially because it was like a writing competition. People understood it when it came to my brother and soccer, or my other brother in video games or whatever, but with me in writing, it was just like, I don't know why you're so upset. So anyway, I got more recluse about my writing. I got really insecure about my writing. I didn't want to share it with anybody ever again until my senior year of high school. Riley, we dated for a little bit, and now he's just like one of my like really good friends. It was a total high school thing, but him and I wrote a song together, and he really inspired me to like reconnect. He saw me, he saw my skill, he was what I needed. I didn't realize that at the time, but he awakened a lot of that. So then I wrote that song, but then we broke up in a fairly dramatic high school way. It was so high school, it was so stupid, but I allowed that I was like, okay, nope, shutting it down. And then I went to college and did all this stuff, right? And then I was dating this other guy, and he was a musician, so I really thought he would get it. I was like, so I got my degree, I moved out of New Mexico, I accomplished all of these goals, and now I have my day job to get me to where I really want to be, which is being a writer, because I was always told not to pursue writing full-time from the beginning because I wasn't going to make enough money, I was going to be a starving artist, blah, 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 blah. So I got this safe, secure healthcare job that has made me miserable for the last decade. But anyway, so I was like in Michigan with my musician situationship thing, and I was just like, okay, well, now I am in my apartment, I have free time, I'm gonna start writing. So then I started writing again, and then I shared with him some poems, thinking that him being a musician, he would get it, and his response was, these are just words. And that killed me. I wish I handled that a lot better. The fact that I didn't give up, I think, was significant, because at that moment in time, that was probably enough to like really push me over the edge. I don't think he realized where I was at and how devastating that was, and then he just kind of like played it off like, well, no, I'm just into the music. I realized he's just a fucking loser who only learned to play guitar because he was a fat loser and he wanted girls to like him, and he wasn't like a music passionate person. Or in that moment, that's how I judged him. I don't know if that's a fair statement, but at that moment in time, he either wanted to humble me, or he's just one of those people who I thought he was a different person than he was. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with learning a skill to get a girl or a guy, because people do it all the time. Is it a little manipulative and gross? Depends on how far you take it. But he just wasn't the right person to talk about. And so just like, okay, devastating. Quit writing. It was short-lived. That was very short-lived that I quit writing because we broke up a few months later. And then once that catalyst in my life happened, it was fuck everyone, fuck everything, nothing's going to stop me. And funny enough, Riley and I he kind of came back into my life at that time, and because we hadn't talked really since the chaos of high school breakup and whatever, and we had like deep healing philosophical conversation. Things were really cool. Like I had my friend, because ultimately Riley's he's meant to be a really good friend. There's a soul connection there for a variety of reasons. And so I was really glad that we could have some closure and like hash that out. And this all ties together. Because one of my last messages to Riley in 2018, before he fucked off somewhere, like life just happened, right? Like I just was like, we just didn't talk for a really long time. We talk presently. So that's how that all ties together. So my last message to him was, I'm trying to figure out how to start publishing my work online, and I want my writing to get out into the world. I was tweeting things, I was testing things on Instagram. I used Medium. I paid for a membership, and I had like a Medium, which is like a writer's app. It's kind of like a Substack in a way. And then I just didn't like the platform. Like I really hate a lot of social media platforms, and I just like, I don't know. So I deleted that, and life got really crazy, and I'm just writing in my journal, and I'm keeping all of these things, and COVID happens. I meet my husband. Lore. I'm making candles. And I start working with an astrologer. And that's how it all like comes together in me, like my resurrection of my writing. Is I started working with this astrologer, and through all that deep healing work, her name's Rebecca. It's Darling Star Heathen. She really helped me a lot. I wish our relationship had a better ending. It's crazy how things work out the way that they do, especially considering where I am now. I don't know if without that moment and that work and her assistance at that moment in my life, I don't know if I would be where I am. I think I would have eventually always gotten here. I think no matter what happens, I would have always eventually found my way, because I have always on some like deep subconscious level been leading myself there despite all the twists and turns. But working with the astrologer really helped me focus and discipline my spiritual path and like the knowledge. I was like, you can only teach yourself so much. Sometimes you need an external source. It's not the only source of validation, but it does help to have a soundboard and someone who's like, she was older and like much more experienced. So I love working with her for the year. And I started writing again, just like little journal entries, what I call my lunar memoirs now. And just little blog posts with my candles. I thought that would be a nice compliment. And then I just wanted to share my poems for fun, because why not? Why not? I have a website, I have a business, I'm making candles, I'm making all of these fucking moves. And if I love candles so much, and I love writing, why don't I do that? Because I'm also at this point, like my husband, he is just trying to pour into me. He's pouring into me all these ideas. He just wants me to be happy. He's so tired of me being depressed. Like he realized just how depressed and miserable I was. And so he bought witchcraft classes, and he signed me up for writing classes, and he did this and he did that. And I was like, and I did them. I went through the motions, but he's like, well, how are they? And I was like, I mean, I'm bored. And like, I feel like I already know. Here's the thing. I had never showed myself to my husband or really to anyone. And if you didn't grow up with me at 9 years old and know all of this, you never would have thought how much writing experience or talent that I had, or just what I knew. And so he's like, well, if you're interested in this, like take a class, like it's a $300 course, like I'll pay for it, or I'll go halvesies with you on it. And that way, like you have the certification and blah, blah, blah. He's just helping me. And while I'm going through all of this, I'm getting angry, not at him, just at the situation. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm acting like I am less than I am. I don't know as much as I know. Like I'm not as talented or experienced as I am. What the fuck am I doing? And then I'm wondering why people are mad. It's like, well, you're in a beginner class. acting like you know more. Because I do know more than the beginners, not necessarily maybe like the teachers, or maybe I'm equivalent to the teacher. It kind of depends what we're talking about. And so like that was like the epiphany, is like I'm keeping myself small to play it safe instead of just showing who I am. So then like I like had a freak out, essentially a meltdown. It wasn't like the best moment with me and my husband. But anyway, I'm just like kind of very arrogant, very God complex, very much me like internally exploding, because like what am I doing? So long-winded way, started posting my blog, started doing all this stuff, and then Rebecca asked me to start writing ritual guides for her astrology magazine that she was starting. And she did all this through Canva. So she's a huge inspiration as we keep going on the story of all the things that I've done. I thought it was really cool. So I got really excited, and then I kind of just didn't realize like how much I had to say, how much I had to write. She thought it was just going to be like a simple ritual guide, which you see in a lot of, do I have a quick one? I don't have one, but like if you know, you know, like there's those like spiritual books, and it has like a ritual, and it's one page, it's like a paragraph, and then it has like, so it has a little blurb, and then it has like a list of ingredients. I kind of think that's what she was wanting. So one page per each lunar phase, the big four. Even though her and I specifically, and I'm sure other people do, like all the phases, like she did all 8 phases, but she wanted a ritual for the big four. That's mainly when people do rituals. The other phases, maybe not so much. So anyway, it was pages, and she's like, I have to like kind of edit this down to like fit the page count and this and that. At the moment in time, thought that whatever. Yeah, you're the editor, do what you gotta do. We ended up having I did 3 of them. So I did Capricorn and Aquarius, and those were posted. Pisces didn't get posted, but I wrote it. There is stuff there. I don't want to get into it in this video. If you want to know about it, comment, ask about it. I'll do a separate video diving into all of that for those who care. But my husband brought some stuff to my attention because I was just so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a published author. Like, I'm published. Like, this is in a magazine. She's selling them to people. I was just really excited that I was doing the thing, and it was just like really exciting to me. And so I didn't pay attention to little details. Nothing misses my husband, especially when it comes to me. I'm protecting me. I call him my demonic knight for a reason. And so he's noticing all of these issues. And I bring it up to Rebecca's attention because I'm trying to figure it out. Because like, again, I'm just a little naive, and I'm just excited because I know it's my work in the book. It became a whole thing. And so I quit writing with her. I was like, well, I'm going to do this on my own. And then I kind of added that into my candles, whereas like, okay, so I have candles, and then look out for this blog post, and I'm going to write rituals, and I'm going to do, because everyone wanted my insight on like my spirituality and my ritual practices, and I don't mind sharing anything with anybody. Like I'll tell everyone all that I do. Like my altars are behind me. Like I'm not done with my witchcraft or anything like that, because people are like, oh, she's so transparent, we can do whatever. It's like, no, I'm showing you this openly for a reason, right? And so anyway, it just kind of became this like whole thing as I'm trying to like, I guess, embody what I understood as being like an unconventional teacher. And I was like, oh, so I'll just like teach this way, and I'll write about what I want to write about, or when people ask me a question, like, you know, that nugget of inspiration always helps write things. And I don't know, I was just going for it. And then I was like, every month I'm gonna release the poems that, and blah blah blah. And then I was like, man, I just loved all that I was writing. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? And my nieces inspired me to write them a story like I used to write when I was 9. And that's like a further conclusion of like the inner child healing of something, the shadow work. Okay, it was crazy to me that a lot of the things that I suppressed in my life are not negative. Well, they can be, but not inherently bad, right? And so this writer part of me is just dying to come out. So I decided I'm gonna write stories for my nieces. For a variety of reasons, through different FaceTimes with them, different conversations. I just thought it would be really sweet and special to do. And I was like, cool, so I'm gonna do that. And I wrote, excuse me, I wrote them, and I couldn't find an illustrator, and became this whole big deal. Like, no one would commit to me on illustrating for a variety of reasons. And I was just like, what the fuck? And I was like, Rebecca did her own magazine. She didn't draw that stuff. She did like graphic design, and she used Canva, and I've used Canva for like social media editing, and it just kind of was like, what the fuck am I doing? It was, to me, the clarity was just like, I'm so fucking stupid. I got so mad at myself. I was like, this is dumb. Like, this has been in front of me the whole time, and I've just delayed it by 2 years almost for really no fucking reason. And so I just decided I was gonna do it by myself. Like, I was tired of waiting on people. I was tired of other people holding me back. It's like, I don't fucking need any of you. Like, I'll learn how to draw eventually in a way that makes me happy. But until then, I'm gonna use Canva. I'm gonna use this graphic art, and I'm gonna at least like put together a book for my stories. And then I was like, I can post them on my blog. Oh, I can monetize a digital copy. I can do all of this, and I can keep going. I can put my creation out there, and I don't have to limit it, because I didn't want to do, like, I didn't want to save money and order, because bands do that. Like, my husband, you know, a lot of his stuff that people do, it's in small, exclusive batches, and it's usually for people in Europe only who go to the concert or whatever. He just has, like, connections, so he'll get stuff even though he's the American. And I was like, I don't like that exclusivity. I want whoever is aligned with whatever I create, I want them to have it at all times, almost. Except my candle. My candles are one of ones. It's like, well, no, I can create you a candle. That candle's for someone else. But the book, stories are different. Excuse me. Stories are different. Stories are for everybody. Movies are for everybody. Music is for everybody. I don't like the elitist side of that. Like, I understand my candles being a unique creation. I love things being created for people, but that's why, so I was like, how do I bridge that? How do I keep it unique and authentic and this like really special, exclusive thing, but not limit my audience? Because I don't care what fucking side of the spectrum you are on. I am open to creating things for everybody. If I can help you, I guess like that's the healer in me. I'm an open-minded person. So if you come to me, I don't give a fuck what your cultural background is or whatever. You are needing emotional, spiritual guidance or assistance on some level, I will connect with you. I am obviously not a Christian, but if a Christian came up to me and wanted a Jesus altar candle, you know, maybe a more open-minded Christian, not like a super Baptist or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, I would totally do that, and I would have all the fun in the world doing it. Like, I really don't like this whole I don't respect your belief thing. Like, I don't agree with your beliefs. I interpret the Bible or the Christian theology differently than you do, but I also understand that you think the way you think for a reason. That is none of my business, and therefore I'm gonna help you along your path in a positive, healthy light. I don't know why that's so controversial. Apparently it really is fucking controversial. People are so fucking stupid about it. I've dealt with a lot of things on social media, particularly TikTok, which is the platform for morons, I think. Like, it just kills me inside. So anyway, rambling about all of that. So that's why I print through Canva. It is more expensive that way too, because like I design everything and I print off in small batches or in single orders, which is what I like. That's how it stays like made to order. I order it and print it for you. It comes with a matching bookmark. Do I have that? I have one right here. Maybe. So like every story has like their own bookmark that kind of aligns with it, and like sometimes I'll put like a little mantra on there, or kind of like the main point of the story for whatever reason. Okay. And so yeah, like I like making like little gift packages for people with my art. And that's kind of like what they are. They're magical little soul packages, and they come with sachets. sachets that are full of things. They're full of crystals, they're tarot cards, or oracle cards, or messenger cards, incense, jewelry, like all these little things that I find, and then I'll be like, oh, I picked this up for this person, because like I'm always at a thrift store, I'm always receiving little things, like these things right here. They're not necessarily for me, but I know people who will like them, and so they're here until I find the person who is meant to go in their like little candle bundle, and or their book bundle. It kind of depends on the order, because we're talking about books right now. But that's how I wanted to keep that. And so now, diving further into it, what kind of books are they? Like, they're the traditional fairy tales and fables. And they look like children's books because they're really whimsical, especially my graphic design. It's not how I envision it in my head. I picture, here, I can pull this up, here. These are like the things that I picture in my head of how like I want my books to be. So this is like a Grimm's fairy tale book. And so like I like the idea of like a compilation book one day. With like a really pretty binding. I don't have the resources for that for a variety of reasons. And eventually I know I could like draw stuff like this eventually. I'm still working on my art skills in that direction. But also I like the subtle touches. I like that it connects to the inner child, like on a subconscious plane. Like, it's not written for kids. I would say the vocabulary, maybe some, depending on the story, some of the story content might be a little bit more mature, but is for the inner child. And I think that's why it's like for all ages. There's a couple books that I would say are probably not for kids under like 13. I do think if you're 13 or older, you, depending on your parenting preference, you can handle that topic. My poetry is definitely mature. I would say 16 to 18 and older. Mainly just so people don't yell at me. If you're comfortable with your kid reading my stuff, awesome. I was exposed to things of this nature as a kid, and I think it was good for, there's a balance. That's a whole other parenting thing, right? So that's kind of like where it is. Then my poetry is dark romanticism. There's philosophy. It's theological, political to an extent. I'm not overly political. I'm a philosophical anarchist in like my practice and my background, and I think that's a good label to describe what I think my beliefs are. I find I'm really eclectic, and I kind of pick things apart. I think that's what we're all kind of meant to do. You're meant to experience and be exposed to things, and you grow and you learn from them, and you take the things that resonate with you, and you get rid of the things that don't, or that aren't like good for you, because what's good for someone else may not be good for you, and what's bad for you may not be bad for someone else. So that's kind of, I don't know, it's the raw, transparent emotion of how I feel at whatever moment in my life. And as an 8th house Aquarius, there is a lot of shadow, taboo, deep dive stuff, especially when it comes to my poetry. But I don't want to be limited. I don't want to be limited to a genre. If I'm inspired to write, to create, I just want to do it. And I don't want anyone to limit me because of who I am, what I look like, or anything. The same reason nobody wants to be oppressed in those ways. I don't think anybody wants to be limited for superficial aesthetics and characteristics. There is no reason why I can't write a peer-reviewed philosophical article that is well respected and gets awards, as well as a smut novel, or even like a really simple cutesy children's book. Okay, full spectrum. I am a full spectrum person, and that's what I realized. So I started with writing for my nieces, and then I was like, why don't I put all of these poems in a poetry book? And why don't I'm always writing poems. I can release a poetry book every year. And oh my gosh, I used to write these Halloween stories, and I'm kind of inspired to write this like mythological love story based off of these psychedelic trips that I've had. And when I go into the story time behind each individual story, you'll get more of those details. But generally speaking, I just really love writing. I could write all day, every day, whether it's my personal journal, which that's what my lunar memoirs are. It's my journal. I write with an understanding that people are gonna read it, but I also am pretty unfiltered. I feel how I feel. I said what I said. That's all in the moment. It's me processing. It's my processing of my day and my experiences as a spiritual human being. So it's deeply flawed. I'm not saying I'm right in anything that I've said or put in there, or even accurate. If I've said something about anyone, I try to be factual, okay? I try not to say things that are, I don't want to falsely accuse anyone of anything or say anything along those lines, but if I say this person's a piece of shit, they were a piece of shit to me, they may not overall be a piece of shit, and I think everyone deserves redemption, right? So I think my opinions can be taken with a grain of salt, especially in that element of things. So yeah, so I have like the Sylvia Plath diarist of me, and then I have the Edgar Allan Poe poet, and then I have insert whichever philosophical narrative, and then I have like my spiritual stuff. Like I'm just, whenever I'm inspired to write, I write. So there are like free things on my blog, which are more like ritual based things. And then there are like my heavier works, my more creative works that are behind a paywall, or something like my lunar memoirs are behind the paywall because they're deeply personal. If you really want to read them, I am going to expect like you to pay to read them, because there are a lot of people who are nosy and they just want to read it to be nosy. And there are some free lunar memoirs out there that I have where people can read those, and I don't really care, but also like to have access to me, I want people who are genuine. And that's like the whole thing behind the paywall, is I want this to be something that's genuine, and I want people who truly like what I'm doing, and I want to do this full time. So in this modern world, to do it full time, you need a paywall. So that kind of explains all of that. So there's digital copies, there's physical copies. You can buy individual digital copies separately. You can buy physical copies separately, or you can subscribe monthly, yearly, or lifetime and have access to all my writing on a digital plane on my website. So that's like a little bit about weird tales, weird books and things. People can commission me. I write main character stories, so I connect with this person. Like every story I've written is an animal or a person or something that I've connected to in a human soul essence kind of way. Like if I wrote about an object, because I have written about like an object that I have, personified as like was it animus? Is that the right word? Like I think everything's alive and it has its own little spirit and soul and story or this or that. So plants, animals, objects, people, all of it. All right, create a story behind it. So you can commission me to write one. It depending on what it is that you're wanting. It depends on how long it takes, but they're kind of like those, like my children's books, or like how I wrote for my nieces, which have a deeply whimsical children's book essence to them. And a few of the other books I've written for a few other kids. It's something that I want them to carry with them for the rest of their lives. So yeah. So anyway, you can commission me to write a story for you, for someone else, or whatever, depending on the material. It depends on the cost. So it's like time and material. Paperback, of course, and digital is the most inexpensive. Hardcover is insanely expensive. I only offer a few things in hardcover, and that's until I get like, I guess, a better publisher or resource to invest in my books in a way that I want. Right now, this is the best I can do with what I have, because I'm doing it all on my own. I write, edit. I have a few friends who do help me edit, because you need a second pair of eyes on things. But I write, edit, design, and print, and ship all by myself. So this is the best way that I've done it without being limited or having to wait on other people. And it allows me to continue to do what I need to do with the fluctuation of finances in this genuinely uncertain economy that we're navigating here in America. So yeah, so anyway, that's like weird books and weird tales, and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it. I am sure it's going to change and evolve. I would hope so. But also, if this is it, then this is it. Like, I'm genuinely happy with this foundation of what I'm doing on a small scale. If I could do this the way this is full time, I would be absolutely content. Of course, everyone always has goals to keep building and thriving and growing, right? So we'll see where this goes. That's just a little bit about me as a writer, and like what kind of books that or just anything. It's not just books. It's just, I'm just a writer. I'm just an author. There are so many things out there: short stories, poems, books, narratives. Like I said, scientific insights. Like while I have a lot of whimsy and metaphor and fun, there is also a deeply logical and serious side to my writing. Depends on what I'm writing about. But I like to intertwine in pop culture and psychology and sociology and all of these other aspects. So I'm writing from a deeply analytical lens, and everything is intentional, especially with like my short stories, my tales, my poems. The word choice is significant for a symbolic reason that's going to invoke or evoke something within you on an unconscious, subconscious plane, and hopefully bring it to your conscious plane. But it's all deep soul healing work. So check it out. If anyone has any like recommendations on topics to write about, you can comment below. Like I don't know, like I'm just going about my life, writing through my own personal inspiration. But if there is anything that anyone wants me to talk about, write about, or whatever, just let me know. I'm open to creative processes and projects. I mean, I just generally really love to create things, and I like the challenge of connecting and creating something that is new or not 100% in my wheelhouse, because I know that it's challenging me for a reason. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this video up. So thank you, and yeah, those are weird books.